Instrumenta is infrastructure as code. It's Terraform, Ansible, Bash. We have too much Bash. We'll fix that one day. Um, it deploys a single tenant, and the whole idea is that nearly everything that Instrumenta does is within the context of a tenant, one tenant account. Um, the idea of the tenant model, so the JSON document which describes the tenant, in functional programming concepts, the tenant model and the Instrumenta code produces a tenant. And that should be, with a few minor exceptions, that should be the functional result. Um,
Mhm.
so Instrumenta is all that code. We produce images, container images, and that's how we deliver that to where that actually runs. That all the Instrumenta images. So when we're talking production like environments, not CI and not doing stuff locally, that's always different. Running real environments, real production pre-prod, even the test environment, the test switch, the UAT tenants which live in the test environment, they're all real environments. Um, the Instrumenta images run in AMP. So AMP is two or three things. Um, there's actually a hub. There's AMP and there's hub. So there is a hub account per environment. So production has one,
Mm.
pre-prod has one, test has one. There's PubSec has their own, and so on. There's more cells as well. Um, the hub account is where AMP deploys to. AMP is the code base which deploys the stuff that runs in the hub. And when we say hub, we're talking hub and spoke. The idea that this is a central place that controls other things. So
Mm.
for a given environment, the hub account is AMP deploys into the hub account. AMP is an EKS cluster, so Kubernetes, which is where the instrument images run. More than where it is, AMP is far more about identity, and meaning
Mhm.
AWS or cloud provider IAM identity.
Mhm.
The Instrumenta images run as an identity in the hub account. And that's what gives them the power to reach out into all of the other tenant accounts, which have been set up. We use various IAM things, which we can get into later. That the account gets created for a tenant. It has a role that is trusted
Mhm.
so that a hub identity can assume, and that's how we bootstrap and move into the tenant. So the hub and AMP is all about IAM identity, allowing it to go and reach out to the tenants. That's beyond that, it is largely disposable. There's a few things that live there short term. It'd be a pain to have to recreate an app deploy. There'd be a few minor disruptions, but um, mostly stateless.
Mhm.
And it's IAM space. And, I mean, we don't care where it is. We deploy them. Productions in EU Central, testers in EU Central. I think pre-prod somewhere else. I tried to deploy pre-prod to a different region just to prove we could. Um, doesn't matter which AWS region they're in. It's not about network. It's all about IAM. Um, there are a few other things in there in AMP, things like environment secrets, which is a concept you'll need to know about at some point.
Mm.
Um, they are secrets. We use secrets manager because that's the best tool for it. That they are shared bits of configuration that apply to every tenant in the environment. So PagerDuty keys, the service keys for PagerDuty, production. Every tenant needs that. So we put that in the hub account, and then the tenant can read that and get
I-
that and deploy it.
Is it AWS Secret Manager or do we retrieve them from a vault?
AWS Secrets Manager in
AWS Secret
AWS,
Manager.
and the GCP one for GCP. We use the cloud provider product for that.
Yeah.
Not don't really want to have to deploy Vault unless
So
we have
my
to.
what I've understood is like AMP is one per environment, either prod or pre-prod. AMP is not per tenant. AMP is
Correct.
basically AMP because it runs on the hub account. It provides the environment and whatever the variables which make things conducive for Instrumenter to then run and provision the tenant.
Correct. And so
Okay.
Instrumental, when it runs, will assume a role in the tenant account because it's allowed to, because it's running in the hub account. So it uses role assumption. In AWS, it uses role assumption. And GCP, the same sort of thing, impersonation.
So is that
So
is
from
that where AMP's role finishes? Where like AMP's job is to provide the stage and the platform for Instrumentor to do its own things, or does AMP does
Yeah,
anything other than that as well, or just empowers Instrumentor to go and do execute
pretty
and
much.
provision
Yeah.
and tenant?
Yeah, so AMP is the execution environment. I mean, it's a Kubernetes cluster. It's where the image runs, where the job runs. But yeah, it's
Yeah,
just a stateless place, a place and an identity for that to run. AMP doesn't, yeah, it doesn't care much beyond that. The actual deployment of it is all about Instrumenter, that image that we created from the code base to
yeah,
run Ansible and Terraform
yeah,
and Bash stuff.
yeah. Last question on this topic, what you said so far is you use the term when Instrumentor does run, it uses tenant model. When we say tenant model, are we talking about reference architecture, or are we talking about these are the types of tenant, and tenant model is like a template of a tenant which we feed to Instrumentor, and then that's the type of tenant you would have?
No, the
It's
tenant model is, I think it probably comes from the Rails idea. The model, a Rails model. Ruby on
okay,
Rails, the model is the data store. Sorry, the tenant model is a JSON document. I will share my screen, find the
okay,
right one. So this is from our test switchboard. This is the tenant model for one of the test tenants. It is literally the JSON document which describes that tenant.
okay. And
Um,
okay, and how do we tell when Instrumentor is provisioning a tenant, like what reference architecture to use? For example, is it going to be small, large, based on tenants customers need? And
like everything in that defines what happens in the tenant model in Instrumenter, it is defined in the tenant model. The reference
so
architecture field in the tenant model says development v2.
yeah,
That
so
tells, and in Instrumenter, we have the definitions for development v2 is an M5 large for RDS, three web service, four scikit nodes, whatever that. All of the code for that maps from this identifier to actual infrastructure is an Instrumenter.
okay, so when we give it that value, that's what I'm saying. Basically, it will go and then fetch that what the development v2 means, basically, and have that um, ref,
Exactly. So
reference architecture
I
applied. Okay,
I can show you. It's a little bit more complicated than this, but yeah, there's the
yeah,
this is the reference architecture definition for development V2. This many nodes of that size and so on and so forth. This is the common one. It's slightly more complicated, but the code looks like this sort of thing, and then that gets turned into the Terraform that creates those nodes and creates those resources and sets disk sizes and stuff.
fair enough. Okay, these were the questions. So carry on. Sorry.
No, no, that's fine. Yeah, so when Instrumenter runs, so we run an Instrumenter image in AMP, but we have to give it the tenant model. So someone needs to have provided that JSON document that we just saw and say, here, go run this. Yeah, that defines which AWS account it's in. Yeah, the target AWS account for the tenant, the names, all the other information it needs. So many things can do that. In the end, it doesn't matter what's doing it. A human could do that. They could run a shell in AMP and provide the tenant model. Yeah, they just in an environment variable usually. Um, Switchboard is the tool that does that formally, for normal things. It is three things. Switchboard is the source of truth for tenants. Yeah, it has a database. It generates the JSON tenant model.
Mhm.
How it does it is up to Switchboard. It could store that in JSON in the database. It could store that in database tables, GitOps. I don't. It doesn't matter. Kind of. It is a database. It has a mixed model for various things. Some are in JSON, some are in tables. Um, but it's the idea is that that thing, switchboard, is the source of truth for a given tenant. It is responsible for maintaining and generating a JSON tenant model on demand. Switchboard Rails is the Rails implementation is yeah, it's got a nice UI. And we're really a bunch of the reason for Switchboard existing is customers, literally production customers, being able to go and change things for themselves
Okay.
via a nice UI. We don't want customers editing JSON. There are fields in the tenant model which the customer has no business knowing, no business changing. Yeah,
Hmm.
most of them, to be honest. Um, there's ones in there you could change which would destroy things. Yeah, so we have a nice UI that says, hey, you want to manage private link? Here you go. You want to manage your IPLL list? Here you go. We'll give you a nice UI. We'll curate it. We'll turn that into what it needs to do. We'll do validation. All those things to make that a nice, safe operation.
Hmm.
And so that's Switchboard's job is to present that. It's also to present it to internally to us as operators, so that we can manage the tenant model, make other changes. We can edit the JSON because we know what we're doing in theory. Um, and there's also the recent. I don't know if you saw the demo last week. The API for Switchboard is coming. Uh, a fully fledged API, well done, done well with like OAuth authentication. So you got to get a temporary token, got to do the OIDC login dance to be able to with the UI to get a temporary token, which is really nice and secure. We're still getting AppSec approval for it, but the idea is that then we can use the API to do it. But that's kind of matching the customer experience. It's like it's all about the input. It's managing that tenant model, managing whatever Switchboard does to control the tenant.
Hmm.
Switchboard is then responsible for the orchestration, the output, which is at the appropriate time based on the rules encoded into Switchboard. Is it the start of the maintenance window? Great, update certain things, start a job.
Hmm.
It runs the jobs in AMP. It says it talks to the Kubernetes API and says, please run
It
me a job with.
it being switchboard basically.
Sorry, yes, Switchboard, yes.
Okay. Okay. Fair.
So Switchboard says to Kubernetes, please run Instrumenter with this
Hmm.
tag, which is the version of Instrumenter that it wants to run. Um,
Hmm.
it puts the tenant model into the tenant model environment variable and runs the job.
Yeah.
And so it runs the various jobs. So one of the things that we'll get to in more detail a little bit later is the stages in Instrumenter. There's four stages: prepare, onboard, provision, and configure. They do various things through the life cycle of the thing. And there's lots of other sub jobs in that. So Switchboard's job is to know that it's a maintenance window. I'll update Instrumenter version and GitLab version and start the jobs that perform maintenance and
Okay.
do them in order. And Switchboard then runs one, waits for it to finish, runs the next one, waits for it to finish, so on and so forth through the thing until the maintenance is done.
Okay.
And so Switchboard is the orchestration layer. Um, Anything else could do that. So we have Switchboard, which is the Rails one. We've got the older one, Switchboard UAT, which is still a CI based one. It uses the Kubernetes integration from GitLab to run out of CI. Does the same thing, or it serves the same purpose. It's GitOps to maintain the tenant model. So we use Renovate to update things instead of something else, or humans using Git operations. Then just runs jobs in AMP, same as ever. So AMP and the deployment at the other end is all the same. It's just Switchboard UAT is the orchestration. The delivery have a tool called Tissue, which they're using for deploying cells. Um, and that's a CI based orchestration layer in place of Switchboard because they have different needs for how they
Okay.
interact with us. They are not deploying the same things in the same way that we are. They are deploying 4 times a day, updating the GitLab version to the latest, very latest patch. The latest, not released, the latest internal thing that's been deployed to .com. So
They
they're
they with they means .com.
delivery. So
Okay.
the delivery team who manage .com. So they are
Okay.
deploying to GitLab.com daily, and there are cells. They're staging, and I think there's some almost production cells now.
Okay.
Um, and so their layer that replaces switchboard is tissue, but it serves the same purpose of orchestration and management. Single source of truth for the tenant model,
Okay.
maintains its idea, and orchestration of running the right jobs at the right time. So they run jobs that only upgrade GitLab because that's the only thing they need to do
Okay.
when they update the. So three layers here. This orchestration layer, AMP is an environment where it runs, and then Instrumenter runs on there and deploys that to the tenants. And that's the flow that you
So,
need to understand.
so switchboard comes first. That's the orchestration layer. AMP is the um, environment layer, if that's the term we can use, and instrument is the executioner basically. As a
Yes.
or provisioner, we should say.
Yes. Yeah. It's the definition of it's the IAC as opposed to anything else, and yeah, it's the definition of what will happen and making it happen.
Okay. So no, thanks. That has given me good overview. I know we are in the last 2 minutes, so I is there more to it before I stop
Not
recording?
more to that layer. In terms of that layer, that is absolutely that's the broadest strokes, and understanding that is key. Once someone comes to you and says, "Hey, I'm talking about AMP," and you know where that fits in that flow and
Mm,
what that all means, that's the definition of success of understanding this layer of it. There's far more below it, but yeah, that is this layer.
yeah.